tax planning is something that shouldn't take up all of your day or all of your week, but you should have a system, whether it's an app that you feel confident with, right? What's beautiful about something like DealMachine is the ability to track things like that, mileage, different things that really make a huge difference. It's 2022. There are apps galore, but which one are you going to use and which one is going to be comfortable for you to check so that you know what your situation looks like at the end of the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and the end of the year.
Tommy, thank you for joining us for our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host, Matt Camp, head of partnerships for DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine in a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, really hear your inspiring stories and educate our audience on the lessons that you've learned over the years. So really excited to welcome on today, Tommy Thornburgh. You're the president of Prime Corporate Services, also known as PCS, and you're really just been in the business credit and tax saving industry for over a decade. You've personally helped over 20,000 real estate investors and entrepreneurs, and really specialize in helping them fund their businesses the right way while helping them keep more of their hard-earned money. So excited to talk all things, corporate entity, tax structure, all kinds of stuff. Welcome on, Tommy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I know tax savings, business credit, asset protection. I'll raise my hand and say, I know this is not the most exciting a lot of times, but it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And a lot of entrepreneurs fail due to lack of capital. So if we can get creative around those areas, I think it's a huge help.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something, I know our audience is often asking about it, and it's some area that might be less approachable for newbies as well. So was really excited to have you on and be a resource for us. But can you maybe, to kind of begin with, tell us more about your journey and how you got in this industry, and especially as it applies to kind of the real estate industry?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'd love that. So growing up, my mom was a real estate agent and my dad owned a real estate company. And my mom was really quick to get people into houses, and the experience was high level. And my dad was treating it more like a business, right? And both of them were excellent at what they did. But being self-employed never really seemed like a risk to me because it's all that I knew, right? So I've been self-employed since I was 18 years old. And at 18 years old, I had a pest control job, and I made really good money for a couple months. But then I had to pay taxes. And it's something that once it hit me, and once I realized, why don't they teach this stuff in school, right? Why don't they teach you about interest? Why don't they teach you about taxes? This is a hole in a huge market of people that are being annihilated by not only paying too much in taxes, but not understanding very basic principles of what the finances are made up of, right? Mm-hmm. So when we started Prime Corporate about 10 years ago, with that background knowledge of this is something that has affected me my whole life due to my parents being self-employed, it's now impacted me from a tax standpoint. And as we start Prime Corporate Services, it's like, what can we do to where if you have a large company, a lot of times you have in-house CPAs or you have in-house attorneys. But for the solopreneur, the startup business owners in general, there isn't a lot of guidance. So we've really tried to form, how can we keep a complicated topic simple and help you build and grow?
Love that, man. Yeah. And to kind of start with, can you maybe talk more about kind of that corporate structure and how to think through the way to really form an entity the right way to begin with? And, especially for that first time, real estate investor.
Yes, absolutely. So for anyone watching this that's worried about the entity structure they have or is considering structuring a business themselves, I would say the 4 primary areas that you really want to focus around. The first is the privacy, right? A lot of real estate investors are always interested in having some anonymity, privacy from their name and their address. The second is protection. Personal is personal, business is business. The more that we can separate the two, the better. The third are the tax benefits, profit and loss. And then the fourth is showing yourself as a business, right? So if you take those four into mind, we're more than happy to also help you understand what's best for your situation, but understand how you're set up. Not all LLCs or S corporations are set up the same. Make sure you're taxed appropriately, structured appropriately, and that you know how to use it. It doesn't want to be a book that's just collecting dust on the shelf type deal.
Right. Yeah, and that's something. I mean, I think that structure is something we often hear is like, hey, do I need to create an LLC to be able to put my property into? Like, where would you kind of advise people to start? In terms of that initial structure.
Yeah, great question. That's a phenomenal question because it's also one that varies really. I mean, if privacy is more important to you than tax benefits, then there's a couple states, Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, that are very well known for having additional privacies that other states don't offer, right? So for those of you that are just getting started, we want to keep it simple. A lot of times doing something out of the state that you reside is plenty to give yourself some separation and tax benefits. But I think where I would start is just talking to a professional or doing a little bit of research on your own. Matt's put together an amazing offer for everyone watching this. And part of that offer is just a free consultation. So we can even break that down for you in 45 minutes to an hour of helping you understand what's best for you. I think that's so important because going and just paying a couple state fees and setting it up on your own, one, is it set up the right way? And two, you don't really know what you're doing to utilize that entity. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah. And then does that evolve, as you become a more advanced investor? Like if you're building a larger portfolio, if you're doing more activities, does that strategy evolve as well? Or, curious how you differentiate whenever people are really up in their game on the real estate activity side?
Yes, absolutely. So we want to help you understand how to crawl before you walk before you run, so to speak, right? So if it's easiest to just start with a single entity, and that's going to give you the protection and the tax benefits, that's great. But as you grow, as you build, those are excellent problems to have. We welcome those problems at that point, right? So once we have more good problems to have where you're generating more income or you're acquiring additional properties, that's when we can really start to expand with holding companies, trusts, wills. The goal is to build a legacy, to build wealth. But as you grow, let's continue to try and look as broke as possible on paper, right?
Fair. Yeah. And I know right now, obviously very busy time of year. Do you have any kind of timely advice for newbie real estate investors and maybe any kind of lowest hanging fruit of what can really make a big impact for people, when it comes to tax strategy like that?
Yes, absolutely. If 2021 was the first year in real estate or your best year in real estate, talk to your accountant or talk to your CPA about what that income level looked like. A lot of times what our CPAs and we tell people is once you're making over $50,000, there's benefit to changing the LLC so that it's taxed like an S corporation for tax benefits. So if you had a good year, if you made over that $50,000 mark, talk to your accountant or your tax professional about if that makes sense. That's the first thing. The second thing, obviously vehicle expenses, vehicle deductions. And then if I was to give you a third that's kind of off the wall, restaurants, business meals in 2021 and 2022 have changed to 100% tax deductible instead of 50. So that's a huge area of savings for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And I know you touched on briefly the vehicle piece too. Do you think that's, I know we're really in that kind of driving for dollars niche for many people. Do you think that's, an applicable thing for a lot of DealMachine members?
100%. Yes. And there's two different categories that you can look at business expenses. So section 179 is more based around the volume or the gross weight, of your car. But if you don't have a G-Wagon, a Tesla, Range Rover, that's okay. There's still standard mile deductions that can be taken advantage of. So once again, you may run into some accountants or CPAs that are nervous, but if you're driving for dollars, maximize on those deductions.
Yeah. One other thing I know you guys do, I know you're really in that, you're helping real estate investors from a business credit perspective and, just corporate credit packages in general. Can you guys talk through a little bit more about what you do there? Because that's something that I think our audience may not be, fully thinking about or taking advantage of.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you. And that's to this point. So two kind of crazy statistics that the IRS comes out with every year. Last year, small businesses left an average of $9,000 on the table from a tax standpoint. That's average, right? So obviously some that are much higher than that. From a business credit standpoint, a lot of business investors fail just due to money and lack of capital to be able to reinvest back into their business, right? So one of the big things to try and simplify it that I explain, everyone that's watching this in the US, if you have a legal name, a social security number, and a credit score, your FICO personal credit score, we want to do the same thing for the business. Let's name it. Let's get you that EIN number, employer identification number. It's like the social for your business, right? And then we can build a separate credit profile for your business. It's called a Paydex profile. Okay, Paydex. It ranges from 1 to 100. 80 to 85 would be like you having a 750 to an 800, Matt, for sake of conversation. But the more that we can separate those legally and financially, now go get a gas card that's with your business. Go build up these larger lines of credit. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not rocket science. It's more of a process. And that's one of the things that we really teach people how to do so that they can invest further into their business.
Love it. Yeah. Is there, I know you touched on as well, like, just, variety of high level tax saving strategies. Is there any common mistakes that you really see, first time investors making there? Like when you say people are leaving, money on the table there, like where, can you break down that playbook of like how you think through that process for a new investor?
So just based off of the 10 years, 10 years experience and thousands and thousands of tax returns discussed. The number one thing is just not having any sort of a system to organize any of your expenses, right? We've all been there, myself included. And that's really what was the pain point for me initially is when you get to the end of the year, when you get to tax time, it's like a shoebox full of receipts or going through your credit card statement in a scurry trying to highlight as many expenses as possible. Or we've all been there, right? Any entrepreneur that's been doing it a long time has had their moment with taxes, I feel like. So having a system in place from the beginning, tax planning is something that shouldn't take up all of your day or all of your week, but you should have a system, whether it's an app that you feel confident with, right? What's beautiful about something like DealMachine is the ability to track things like that, mileage, different things that really make a huge difference. It's 2022. There are apps galore, but which one are you going to use and which one is going to be comfortable for you to check so that you know what your situation looks like at the end of the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and the end of the year?
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely big for our driving tab within the DealMachine app. I know that you can go in there and export your routes and use that as a really great way to be able to track mileage and things like that. So make sure to use that driving tab as a resource, this time of year for tax reasons too. But
I saw that. It's so smart. It's such an easy way that if you're driving for dollars, your vehicle and your mileage is gotta be an expense that you're talking about or that's at the top of your mind, because once again, you find a couple deals. It's not about what you make. It's what you keep. And if you're not tracking that mileage, if you're not writing off softwares and subscriptions and other areas around those different topics that you use anyway, you're just giving your hard-earned money back in the form of taxes as opposed to reinvesting it back into your business.
Yep. Yeah. I know we talked to a variety of different types of investor too. We've got, wholesalers, fix and flip, buy and hold. Can you maybe talk through each of those different approaches and, the tax advantages, of each and, which are most beneficial from a tax perspective?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a lot of investors that do everything as well, right? So I try and use them as the example here because a lot of times when you're an investor in general, let alone a real estate investor, you're going to have deals that are better to wholesale. And then you're going to come across deals that you're like, I'm not giving this property up. This is a long-term hold for me. I want this to be a long-term rental, and everything in between, fix and flips to you name it. When you are an investor, especially a real estate investor, those opportunities come across your plate. So what I like to explain there is understand the liability for yourself and understand what the deductions look like. If you're getting rid of a property in less than 12 months, that is considered active or short-term gains. Anything less than 12 months is going to be taxed differently than if you're holding on to something over 12 months, right? So a lot of times when we work with real estate investors, they want to make sure they're doing just that. Active income, fix and flips, wholesales, they want to separate that with an active LLC or an active S corporation. And then for their buy and holds, a lot of times they want some additional protection for the long term of having it with a separate entity. Some of them like to tie it together with a trust. But those are all strategies that the more you understand about your situation from an asset protection standpoint and a tax standpoint, the more comfortable it is for you moving forward.
Yeah. And can you kind of define and highlight the 1031 exchange as well? Just because that's something we hear about often and know that's something to be well aware of if you're a long-term investor.
Yes, for sure. The one thing that I'm so sick of hearing that they're going to get rid of the 1031 exchange. I'm like, get over it. It's been a strategy for years, and it's an excellent way to be able to defer some of those taxes, right? So on a 1031 exchange, you're going to locate property A, or property A is a property that you already have. And once you sell that property, you have to locate another property that you're going to roll those profits into. So the goal here is you're not avoiding taxes, you're deferring taxes to the next property. At some point, it's going to catch up where you pay those taxes, but it's an excellent strategy that investors have been using for years to keep more money in their corner, defer taxes until a later date by investing back into a property that's similar either in size, location, or actual home.
Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down. Yeah. And like you mentioned, I mean, anybody, wanting more specific questions, feel free to reach out. We'll make sure to link to that here in the bio or in the notes as well. But one other thing I did want to ask you about, I know you lead a team of nearly 40 business advisors. That's definitely something, quite a few of our investors are looking at, is building their own team, being able to up their game as a leader. Do you have any advice there as you've kind of grown that team and, been able to assemble that team around you in terms of leadership for new leaders and things that you do every day that make you a better leader?
I appreciate you saying that. I love this question because this is one of the most difficult ones to do, is build a team and build a team that you enjoy being around, right? I truly love the team that we have, and I think that's a huge part of our success. No one is bigger than the team, right? And playing sports growing up, I think that's something you learn at an early age. When you're going through that process, there's no one person that is bigger than that overall team. And we've had to let people go, unfortunately, just due to them being selfish within themselves as opposed to looking at the overall business as a whole. I think that's very, very important. The second piece of advice from more of a execution standpoint, if you haven't read the book Rocket Fuel, I highly recommend it. I love that book. Being able to make sure to establish people within roles of whether or not they're more of a visionary or an integrator for the business, I think is extremely important. So there's no single person that's bigger than the corporation, yourself included, myself included. And understanding roles and understanding what people bring and acknowledging things like that, I think is extremely important. So those are two pieces that I think have made a huge difference for us.
Who's the author of that book too?
Gino, Oh my
I have
goodness.
to quiz you
Let
on
me
the
tell you
spot.
real quick. It's all right. I should tell you. I should be able to tell you off the top of my head if
We'll
I'm
link to that
I'm
as well.
shouting it out. But I got you right here. It's Gino. It starts with a W. I can't remember the last name. Gino Wickman. Gino
There we go.
Wickman. Rocket Fuel. Awesome book.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And I agree about the sports piece as well. I mean, that was definitely beneficial for me for getting that mindset of team, team greater, being greater than yourself. So
we let one of our top advisors go a couple years ago, and it was something that we were truly concerned about. At the time, we probably had about 20 advisors, and his performance was great, extremely reliable, but no one got along with him. No one enjoyed working with him. And it got to a point where we had to let him go and move on. And ever since, not only has it been a more enjoyable workplace, but we've been able to grow and scale at a much quicker rate. And we attribute a lot of that to removing the worm out of the apple and just allowing everything else to flourish. So it's important.
yeah. Well, Tommy,
You spend too much time working. You spend way too much. You might as well enjoy what you're doing. You're not doing
100%.
this time freedom, financial freedoms.
Yep.
Once you truly find that joy and find that passion, it's so much easier to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I appreciate that perspective and giving people the inspiration to do that too. So Tommy, it's been fantastic, man. I really, really appreciate you having you on in your time today. Where did you say is the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me as well. This is great. We'll get you over a link. Mm-hmm. And for anyone that's part of the DealMachine community, for anyone watching this video, click on the link and schedule a free 45-minute to an hour consultation. Okay. We can talk to you about the entities you already have. We can help you with getting structured with an entity the right way. If you're interested in building business credit, if you need a team of tax professionals, anything in these areas that we've discussed, feel free to click the link below, schedule an appointment for the free consultation, and we're happy to help.
Yeah, I really appreciate you giving free resources and time in our community. And I know we link as well to our free resources. We've got like a Scaling Your Real Estate Investor book, ebook in the description. So make sure to check out all this in the description below as well. But Tommy, thanks again for your time. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. Yeah, to everyone watching, this is Matt Camp with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.